Substance Abuse Prevention. Lesson 3. Causes of Substance Abuse Disorder. Part 1. The Progression of Disease. About the instructor. My name is Amanda. I go to Arizona State University and I'm a health education and health promotion student. You can reach me by commenting on underneath the YouTube videos or by commenting on the Instagram or Facebook pages. Feel free to reach out with any comments, questions, or concerns. I'm very friendly and I'd love to hear any of your thoughts or questions or anything you might have to say. What are we going to be talking about in lesson number 3? Lesson number 3's topic is the progression of substance abuse disorder. This is lecture number 3 of a 12-lecture series on substance abuse disorder prevention. In this video, we will be exploring the process of developing substance abuse disorder, and we will begin with the addict's first time trying a drug and follow the progress of the disease through the development of substance abuse disorder. Here are the student learning objectives. Student learning objective 1. Participants will be able to outline the progression of substance abuse disorder in writing with 100% accuracy. This is kind of your overall goal or objective that you should take from watching this lecture series. We'll also touch on this student learning objective in the independent practice option at the very end of the lecture. Our second student learning objective is participants will be able to define intoxication in writing with 100% accuracy. Our third objective is participants will be able to explain in writing 3 reasons that people begin using substances with 100% accuracy. Student learning objective number 4 is participants will be able to name 1 substance that is considered highly addictive in writing with 100% accuracy. The 5th student learning objective is that participants will be able to explain in writing 1 negative change that repetitious substance use has on the brain with 100% accuracy. Here is a summary of the material that we're going to be covering in this lesson. We are going to start off by talking about the choice to try drugs. At the end of that section, we will have an activity, a compare and contrast activity, and then we will have 2 written assignments. The second topic in our lesson will be substance abuse and the brain. And here we are going to look at the changes that occur in the brain and the way that substances affect the brain and how this causes substance abuse disorder. After these 2 topics, we are going to close our lecture by reviewing the materials that were presented and then reviewing our written assignments. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to present our independent practice option. It's an optional assignment that you can choose to participate with. So let's think about it for a second. I would like you to write down what you think the definition of intoxication is. We are going to compare our answers later in the lecture. So just take a moment, pause the video, write down what you think the definition of intoxication is. Take maybe, 2 minutes. You don't have to get super detailed. And then, or if you want to, go ahead. And then unpause the video and we'll come back. And later this is going to come up in the video. Welcome back. We are going to dive into our lesson content lesson content with the choice to try drugs. Now, the initial choice to use a drug for the first time is voluntary. That means that nobody, most of the time no one is forced to try the drug. It's when someone has substance abuse disorder, we talk about how they sometimes lose the ability um, or have difficulty choosing to not use their substance. However, the first time that they try a drug, it's voluntary. They um they choose to do it. In most cases, people engage in recreational drug use on occasion. So they try the drug for the first time. Then they might choose to use the drug occasionally, that means every once in a while, recreationally. A lot of times we think of recreational drug use as being like happening around friends or for fun in a group setting, but it doesn't have to be. Recreational drug use can happen alone or by oneself. Now, when people start to engage in drug use more often, occasionally and recreationally, this can lead to more frequent use of the substance. In other cases, the addiction may begin with the illegal use of taking someone else's prescription medications. And we touched on that in lecture 1, how it is illegal to use somebody else's prescription medications. And sometimes actually substance abuse disorder can start with this type of using. Continuing on with the choice to try drugs. So sometimes people may be under the impression that using the substance makes them perform better or may make them feel more comfortable or relieve anxiety. So an example of somebody who thinks maybe that making using a substance makes them perform better might be somebody who is using um, somebody's prescription for ADHD medicine. This would be an example of a person using somebody else's prescription. They might think that by taking somebody else's ADHD medicine, they are performing better in school and they're able to study better or perform better for some reason academically. This is not the case, but they might get it into their head that this is that it's making them be a better student. Or another example is steroids. Someone might assume that by taking illegal steroids, they're becoming a better athlete. An example of feeling more comfortable or relieving anxiety could be drinking alcohol in social settings. Sometimes somebody that's using substances gets the idea in their head that by drinking alcohol, it makes them feel more comfortable around other people and relieves their anxiety. Um, Social anxiety, for example, um, or sometimes people say that using substances helps to calm their nerves. Um, this is common in substances that are depressants or that depress the central nervous system, and these people may continue to use because they enjoy the feeling of intoxication. That is another reason. They may simply enjoy the feeling of being intoxicated. What is intoxication? Well, intoxication is an intense pleasure or high that is experienced as a result of the use of the drug. Note that the sensations can vary with each drug. Now, some drugs, depending on what type they are, may make you feel more awake. Some drugs may make the user feel sleepy. They may there's a variety of different experiences that each person might have with a specific substance. And some individuals simply like the feeling that they get from these substances. That feeling is intoxication. And that brings us to our first activity. Compare your answer. I want you to take out the piece of paper that you wrote your definition of intoxication down on, and I want you to compare it to the definition that we just saw on the previous slide. If you need to pause the video or rewind the video so that you can see that answer, feel free to do so. Look at the answer that was on the slide and look at your answer on your paper and look at the ways that they were similar or the ways that they were different. Do you think that maybe you said you kind of got the same answer, but you used different words? Or do you think that you interpreted intoxication a totally different way? Whether it was similar or different, I would love to hear about your answers and how they were similar or different. Please comment your answers underneath the video and discuss them. Feel free to comment on other people's answers as well. Welcome back. And we have our first written assignment of the lecture here. I would like you to define intoxication in the comment section below the video. You can post your answers on the Instagram or Facebook pages as well. Here we have the Instagram address at Substance Abuse Prevention 123. And then our Facebook address is the same, just with spaces, Substance Abuse Prevention 123. If you'd like, you can pause the video now and complete your written assignment, or you can wait until after the lecture and do all of your assignments at one time. It is up to you. Our second written assignment for lecture number 3 is to explain 3 reasons that people may begin using drugs. You can write this in the comment section below the lecture video, or you can post your answers on the Instagram and Facebook pages as well. And then we have the addresses here as well. Similar to the first written assignment, if you'd like to pause now and complete the assignment now, go ahead. Otherwise, you can wait till the end of the lecture or later on. Let's move on to our second topic, substance abuse and the brain. A key thing to take away from this topic, this section of the lecture, is that repeated drug use changes the way that the brain experiences pleasure. Now, there are a number of changes that happen in the brain as a result of substance use, especially repetitious or repeated use of substances. But right now we're going to be looking at the way that using the drugs or substances changes the way the brain experiences pleasure. This is a very important factor in the progress of substance use to substance abuse disorder and the progression of the disease. Now, note here that when the brain experiences these changes, this is when physical addiction or physical dependence can occur. Now, physical dependence or physical addiction is when the body needs the substance in order to function or to maintain itself. We will touch on symptoms of substance abuse and withdrawal as well in later lectures. For now, note that when the physical addiction occurs when the changes in the brain occur. Substances have an undesired effect on the brain's reward circuit. The brain's reward circuit is what tells the brain, what helps the brain to experience pleasure. On the last time we talked about the changes that affect the way the brain experiences pleasure. So the reward circuit is what controls that experience, that feeling of pleasure. Now, the addict is often unaware of these effects. Um, the addict doesn't just choose to, most of the time, the person who's using substances doesn't know that these changes have occurred or are going to occur, and there's not a moment where they realize that the brain has changed the way that it's functioning. Now, the change that happens in the brain is due to the substances, the presence of the substance in the brain stops producing natural endorphins. Endorphins are naturally occurring chemicals in the brain. Think of them, they are what powers the brain's reward circuit when when a person isn't using substances. A normal, healthy person not using substances. For example, you might get excited about something. Something happens, a stimulus, you could say, happens, and you get excited about something. Let's say you did well on an assignment and your teacher rewards you with a piece of candy. The excitement and the anticipation of getting your reward and realizing that you did something good, the brain will release endorphins, and that tells you that you've done a good job and you should feel happy or feel good or feel pleasurable. And that's the brain's reward circuit working in a natural way. When somebody who's using substances takes their substance, the substances interact with the parts of the brain that receive those endorphins and process them. So they're getting that same pleasure, but not naturally. So because of the presence of substances, the endorphins the brain stops producing them because those neural receptors, the parts of the brain that the endorphins interact with, they're always being stimulated, so the brain doesn't need to produce endorphins. And people who are using substances don't normally realize that this is happening. When the brain stops producing the endorphins, the addict has to seek out the drug to satisfy their need for stimulation of the reward circuit. Remember that reward circuit is what makes the person feel happy. A reward circuit is what makes the person feel pleasure, good feelings. Reward circuit, easy to remember, reward circuit equals happy or pleasure or positive experiences. So the person who is using substances and abusing them becomes physically addicted, and they no longer have the ability to experience this without the presence of that substance. Now, these changes often they also lead to an interference in impulse control when it comes to drug use and the loss of self-control. So because of their dire need to seek out and satisfy the reward circuit or stimulate the reward circuit, there's an interference with their impulse control. Impulse control is the ability to control what choices and actions that that you make. I might, let's see, I might see a shirt on a shopping rack that I want. And my immediate thought is I'm going to grab that shirt and buy it. Then my brain tells me, oh, you wanted to save your money to buy a concert ticket. So my impulse control, my brain's telling myself, don't do this instead. That's impulse control. It's kind of far out there example, but you get my point. And this can also lead to the loss of self-control when it comes to using substances. The addict is in such need to satisfy that reward circuit that this becomes really almost an obsession right here. Now, as usage continues, a need for more of the substance to achieve the desired result develops. This is called tolerance. So, tolerance is when a certain amount of a substance doesn't produce the same results as it did the first time. So the first time this amount of substance created the desired effect of intoxication or stress relief or whatever purpose the person is using the substance, using it for. They can use it and get their desired effect for this amount. Now later down the line, because they're using it so often, the changes in the brain happen, tolerance develops, and now this much substance is needed. Well, as time passes, then maybe this much substance is needed. And so as time continues on, tolerance is what causes people to use and need more of the substance to achieve their desired results. Now, research has shown that long-term usage can actually affect other systems of the brain as well, other than just the reward circuit. So these systems are associated with behavior, memory, learning, judgment, stress, and decision making. Now, we've seen in other lectures that substance abuse can actually affect behavior and decision making, right? We might choose to do more risky behaviors. So it can also change the way that normal behaviors are, change the behaviors that people exhibit. So someone who acts someone who might be very loud or maybe not loud, like outgoing and very talkative and fun-loving might become very quiet and want to be alone more often and less outgoing, and their behavior might change. Additionally, they may have a harder time remembering things. They may actually have loss of memory. They might have blackouts. They might not be able to, they might not only have a challenge memorizing things and creating memories, but they might lose some of their memories as well. Learning may become very difficult. Judgment, they might not be able, this is kind of goes along with their decision making and behavior. They might not be able to make very good choices. Their judgment change what they used to perceive as perhaps a choice they wouldn't make, they might make now, or vice versa. And then stress. Substance abuse and use really increases the stress that on the brain and the body. Some drugs are considered to be more addictive than others. So these drugs have a higher risk for addiction, and physical dependence may happen at a faster rate. And that is what causes them to be considered more addictive than other substances. Examples of these, two examples are opioid painkillers and stimulants. They have Physical dependence can happen at a faster rate, and that is what increases the risk for addiction. This takes us into our next written assignment. This assignment, I would like you to name one substance that is considered highly addictive. You can do this in the comment section below the video, or you can post your answers on Instagram and Facebook as well. Here's our Instagram tag at Substance Abuse Prevention 123 and our Facebook Substance Abuse Prevention 123. Our second written activity is to explain one negative change that repetitious substance abuse has on the brain. You can post your answers on Facebook or Instagram. If you don't want to comment them under the YouTube video lecture. And then there's our Instagram and Facebook addresses as well. All right, let's take a moment to review the information that we just learned in this lecture series. Here are some key takeaways from lesson number 3. The initial choice to use a drug for the first time is voluntary. Here we have our definition of intoxication. Intoxication is an intense pleasure or high that is experienced as a result of the use of a drug. Repeated drug use changes the way that the brain experiences pleasure. I will say that one again. Repeated drug use changes the way that the brain experiences pleasure. That's that reward circuit that we talked about. And these substances have an undesired effect on the brain's reward circuit, as well as other circuits as well. Let's just take a moment here to review our written assignments. If you've already completed the written assignments and you've paused the video as we've assigned them and presented them in the lecture, awesome, 2 thumbs up for you. If you're waiting till the end of the lecture to complete the assignments, I can't wait to see your answers. Our first assignment is to define intoxication. Next is explain 3 reasons that people may begin using drugs. Third is name one substance that is highly addictive. And our last written assignment is to explain one change that occurs in the brain as a result of repeated drug use. You can submit your assignments by commenting your answers beneath the lecture video. You can comment on the Instagram or Facebook posts, or you can send your answers in direct message on Instagram or Facebook. Here is a list of some of the resources that were used to compile the information in this lecture lesson. If you're interested in learning a little bit more on this topic, you can begin exploring at these websites. And lastly, here's your independent practice option for this lecture. In this optional activity, I would like you to create a timeline that depicts the process of substance abuse disorder as outlined in this lecture. As always, with our independent practice assignments, you can use your creativity and you can depict this timeline any way that you want. You can put it in a picture form, in a visual format, in an outline. It's totally up to you. The length of the assignment is not specified. You can submit this assignment by posting it to social media and tagging the Instagram or Facebook page, or by direct message on either of these social media platforms. Thanks for watching lecture number 3 on the causes of substance abuse disorder, the progression of disease. Into lesson number 4. That will be part 2 of causes of substance abuse disorder. And in that lesson, we will be talking about genetics, environment, and mental health.